What's up, everybody? I'm Steve from GenX Countdown. Today we're diving into the wild, wonderful world of 70s and 80s science fiction television. You know, those shows that made you race home from school to catch the reruns on UHF channels while your mom cooked hamburger helper or some La Choy chow mein from the can. Remember those crispy noodles in the top of the can? Anyway, this was the era when special effects budgets were measured in pocket change. Plot holes were big enough to fly a ragtag spaceship through, and every alien civilization somehow spoke perfect English. The beauty of the 80s, though, is that these shows were absolutely magical. They captured our imagination during those lazy Saturday afternoons at the video store, scanning the sci-fi section for something that looked like it would blow our minds. Whether you were sneaking downstairs for late-night cable binges or begging your parents to let you watch these on the main TV, these series deliver the kind of campy space opera goodness that modern CGI spectacles just can't replicate. So grab your Tang and your Pop Rocks because you're taking a nostalgic journey through 10 sci-fi TV shows that were so wonderfully weird, they're still worth watching today.
Section 12, Launch Bay Alpha, stand by to launch fighter probe.
Acknowledge input, recorded, and functioning.
We're going to start with 1978's Battlestar Galactica, and IMDb has this series at a 7.1, and it was too short-lived. This was the VHS box set that practically jumped off the shelf at Family Video with that sweet, sweet spaceship and cast artwork. The last remnants of humanity flee across the galaxy in a ragtag fleet, searching for the mythical planet Earth while being hunted by their own robotic creations, the chrome-plated, red-eyed Cylons, who sound like they're gargling marbles when they talk. It's basically Star Wars meets the Ten Commandments, complete with space Mormons and a disco-era soundtrack that somehow make the laser battles feel super groovy. Glenn Larson created this epic on a then massive budget of $8 million for the pilot episode, which was more than most feature films at the time. Even though ABC canceled it just after one season because of those hefty costs, the practical effects and model work still hold up today, proving that sometimes limitations breed creativity. Unlike that weird Galactica 2004 spinoff that we're probably not going to talk about.
The year 1987, at Cape Kennedy, NASA launched the last of America's deep space probes.
Gang, we're in 1979 now, and this is Buck Rogers in the 25th century still to come. This has an IMDb of 6.8 for the series, and here's the show that taught us that the future would definitely include feathered hair and disco music. NASA pilot Buck Rogers gets frozen for 500 years and wakes up in a world of skin-tight spandex uniforms, talking computers with attitude, and a tiny robot named Twiki who says, "Beady, beady, beady," way more than any self-respecting machine should. Plus, there's Colonel Wilma Deering, proving that women in the future would still somehow need rescuing while wearing the most impractical space outfits imaginable. Thank God. Gil Gerard's charming performance in the show's unapologetically camp approach made it a guilty pleasure that nobody felt guilty about. The series was actually a revival of the 1930s radio serial, updated with all the late 70s excess you could possibly handle. Think Saturday Night Fever in space with lasers. The science was questionable and the plots were recycled from every other space opera, but when you're 8 years old hiding behind the couch during the opening credits, scientific accuracy isn't exactly your top priority.
Steve Austin, astronaut, a man barely alive.
This is a banger. 1973 to 1978, everyone's favorite, the $6 Million Man. IMDb gave it a criminally low 7.1. This was the show that made every kid on the playground practice running in slow motion with those iconic sound effects. Colonel Steve Austin gets rebuilt after just a devastating crash, becoming a cyborg super agent with a bionic eye, bionic arm, and bionic legs. Basically the coolest thing any of us had ever seen outside of comic books. The show perfected the art of the dramatic zoom in on Steve's bionic eye, complete with that mechanical whirring sound that we all tried to imitate and probably still do today when nobody's looking. Lee Majors became the ultimate action hero for a generation raised on TV dinners and Saturday morning cartoons. The series spawned the Bionic Woman, countless toys, and probably influenced every cyborg character that came after, from RoboCop to the Terminator. Producer Harv Bennett knew he had something special when kids started jumping off the jungle gyms pretending they had bionic legs. Though thankfully most of us survived our backyard stunt attempts without needing actual reconstructive surgery. Sadly, honestly. This one's super new to me. It's 1978 to 1981's Blake's 7. IMDb gave it a 7.9, which is a pretty hefty score. This is a BBC classic that was hiding in the late-night cable schedule like a perfectly preserved artifact from a way more cynical time. political prisoner Raj Blake escapes with a crew of criminals and misfits aboard a stolen alien ship to fight against a totalitarian federation. It's like Robin Hood meets Star Trek, but with a much higher body count and zero faith in happy endings. The show wasn't afraid to kill off main characters left and right or end on massive downer notes, which was revolutionary for kids programming and probably traumatized a few young viewers along the way. Creator Terry Nation, who also gave us the Daleks, crafted this series on a budget that would barely cover catering on modern TV shows, yet somehow created one of the most compelling space operas ever made. The wobbly sets and obvious model work couldn't diminish the sharp writing and complex characters that made every episode feel like a game of chess where half the pieces might betray you. It's the rare sci-fi show that gets better with age, unlike some of the shinier American productions that relied more on flash than substance. I'm looking at you, Buck Rogers. This one I deeply recall, and that's 1977's Quark with the IMDb 6.7. You probably stumbled across this one during those weird UHF channel surfing sessions and thought you were having a fever dream. Adam Quark commands a garbage collection ship in the distant future, dealing with cosmic trash and bureaucratic nonsense while trying to figure out which of his identical twin navigators is which. Spoiler alert, it doesn't matter because they're both totally hot. It's like if Mel Brooks decided to parody Star Trek before Star Trek even needed parodying. Complete with a robot named Andy who's perpetually confused about his own gender identity. Buck Henry created this brilliant satire that lasted exactly 8 short episodes, proving that sometimes the universe just isn't ready for certain kinds of genius. The show was way ahead of its time in its environmental themes and workplace comedy structure. It's kind of like The Office, but in space. It had more laser guns and probably just about the same existential crisis. Quark deserved better than its brief run, especially considering how many inferior sci-fi comedies we had to endure in the decades that followed.
Other worlds lie outside our seeing, beyond the beyond, at the edge of within.
1985 gave us Otherworld, and IMDb gave it a 7.6. This was the show that appeared on your TV guide and made you think, what the hell is this? The Sterling family gets lost in a parallel dimension where everything looks suspiciously like Southern California with different costumes and slightly modified social roles. They're constantly trying to get home while avoiding the zone troopers and navigating bizarre alternate societies that somehow always reflect some aspect of 1980s American culture. It's like Quantum Leap meets the Twilight Zone, but with more family bonding and less philosophical weight. Way less. Created by Roderick Taylor, the series lasted only 8 episodes again, but managed to explore themes of fascism, conformity, and family dynamics with surprising depth. The production values were actually pretty solid for mid-80s television, and the concept was ambitious enough that you kept hoping they'd find their footing. Unfortunately, CBS didn't give it enough time to develop its mythology, leaving viewers with another what could have been entry in the sci-fi television graveyard of the 80s. At least we still had V to keep us company. Guys, this was appointment viewing. V from 1983 to 1985. Another criminally low 7.8 on IMDb. This was the series everyone talked about at school in 8th grade. The women were hot, the lizards were creepy, and you never knew who to trust. The visitors arrive on Earth claiming to be friendly aliens seeking our help, but they're actually lizard people who want to harvest humans for food and steal our water. The original miniseries delivered genuine scares, and that infamous scene of a visitor swallowing a guinea pig, or was it a mouse, whole. I forgot which one. Also, all the fascist imagery that was about as subtle as a brick through a window. Diana became television's greatest female villain, and we're still not over that reveal where they peel off their human faces. And the pregnancy storyline, people, come on. The series version that followed, it couldn't quite match the impact of those original miniseries, but it gave us more time with the resistance fighters and expanded the mythology in super interesting ways. The show's influence can be seen in everything from the X-Files to modern alien invasion movies, proving that sometimes the best science fiction is really about the horrors of our own world, just with better makeup effects. (1977 to 1978) gave us The Man from Atlantis. It's an IMDb of 6.5, and to me that's generous. Here was your typical guy with gills saves the ocean show that somehow lasted 13 episodes and 4 TV movies. Mark Harris is the survivor of Atlantis, rescued by marine biologist Elizabeth Merrill, and recruited by a government foundation to protect the oceans from various underwater threats. Patrick Duffy's unique swimming style became instantly iconic. That undulating dolphin kick that looked completely ridiculous but somehow worked perfectly for an aquatic superhero. The show took itself just seriously enough while embracing the inherent absurdity of the entire premise. Producer Herbert Solow managed to create genuine underwater atmosphere despite obvious budget constraints, and Duffy's solid performance sold the character's fish-out-of-water struggles, literally. It's the kind of high-concept show that could only exist in that magical window between Star Trek and Star Wars, when networks were willing to greenlight almost any sci-fi concept, even if it involved a guy who can breathe underwater and talk to dolphins.
What did you mean, you'll die?
So few plants here, it's hard for me to breathe. This air, it smells so foul.
No kidding. You must be new in town.
I definitely missed this one. This is 1981 to 82, super short run. It's The Phoenix, IMDb of 7.3. And this was the show that probably aired opposite something way more popular, leaving it buried in the weekend schedule where only dedicated channel surfers would find it. Benu of the Golden Light is an ancient astronaut who awakens from suspended animation and searches for his fellow Atlantean while being pursued by government agent Preminger. They're just making everything up here. Judson Scott brought a genuine, otherworldly quality to the role, making Benu feel authentically alien despite the limited makeup budget. The show's mythology was surprisingly deep for something that lasted only 5 episodes. Check this one out on IMDb or even Wikipedia. Anthony and Nancy Lawrence created a series that felt more mature than most sci-fi television of the era, dealing with themes of immortality, loss, and the clash between ancient wisdom and modern paranoia. The production design and Scott's performances elevated the material that could have been completely ridiculous in way less capable hands. It's another victim of the too weird for network television syndrome that claimed so many innovative shows of the early 80s. Though at least we got those 5 episodes before the network suits decided viewers weren't ready for philosophical science fiction. I know I wasn't. 1975 to 1977 gave us Space 1999, and IMDb gave it 7.3. And this was the show that made you question everything you thought you knew about physics while absolutely mesmerizing you with those Eagle spacecraft designs. The moon gets blasted out of the Earth's orbit by a nuclear waste explosion, sending Moonbase Alpha and its crew on an uncontrolled journey through space where they encounter a different, bizarre alien civilization every week like clockwork. The premise is completely bonkers from a scientific standpoint. The moon would have disintegrated instantly, probably, but the production values and philosophical themes made it appointment viewing for anyone craving serious science fiction on television. Jerry and Sylvia Anderson created this live-action show follow-up from their puppet shows, bringing the same attention to detail and model work that made Thunderbirds, if you recall that, legendary. The series featured some of the most impressive practical effects of the 1970s, with those iconic Eagle transporters becoming instant classics of sci-fi design. Space was kind of like a more wholesome Star Trek, though. The second season's edition of Maya the Shape-Shifting Alien definitely pushed things in a more colorful direction. Man, I love going over these sci-fi shows that proved you didn't need a Marvel-sized budget to capture our imaginations. Just big ideas, practical effects, and the courage to be completely ridiculous when the situation called for it. And luckily, it always did. These series remind us that sometimes the best science fiction comes from limitations, not endless possibilities. Whether you discovered them during their original runs or found them years later on cable reruns, these shows shaped how an entire generation thinks about space travel, alien encounters, and the future itself, I guess. Do you have that one friend whose dad recorded everything on VHS and had copies of these laying around even today? Which one of these shows deserves a legit primetime reboot right now? And more importantly, which sci-fi shows of the 70s and 80s did I 100% miss? I'll see everyone in the comments and can't wait for the memories of shows most of us likely forgot about. Until now, that is. Thanks all, love you, and as always, stay cool.